This is episode 52 of the Marshall Street Podcast.
You're listening to the Marshall Street Podcast, the home of music industry know-how that will give you the skills to take your career to the next level. Here are your hosts, Bennett Ferguson and Stu Watts.
Welcome everyone back to the Marshall Street Podcast. First one this year, first one of
2022.
Here with Matthew Craig.
Was good.
And this is episode 52. So as always, if you like what we've talked about here, if you've gotten anything out of it, if you found it's helped your journey in the music industry, make sure to like and share it to friends. If someone you know is in the music industry and you think this can help them, share it around. That's how we're going to get this information out.
That's it.
So, Matthew Craig, many
yes,
people
sir.
know you. For those that don't, you and your
good.
brother founded AU Dollars.
Yep.
Do you want to run us through, I don't know, give us a bit of your resume?
Yeah, just a quick background. So, been doing this music thing for about a decade. Junior and I started off just a couple of kids in the north, made some creative shit, decided to put a collective together sort of shit. And then that evolved into, management and a label and all the things that come with it when you're independent and just hustling on your own. So it was RMF, Real Music. We founded that 2012, we put the crew together. About 2015, we started moving probably 2014, started playing shows and releasing and all that sort of jazz. And then off the back of that, Junior was touring flat out, meeting a lot of artists around the country we were connecting with. There was a gap in the market. He kicked off AU Dollars, just playing DJ sets of dope stuff from around the country that wasn't really getting a look at the time. This is 2015, 16. That flipped into a radio show, and now 6 years down the track, AU Dollars is what it is, Australia's Hip Hop Connect, and the scene's grown pretty wild in that time. And we've just grown with it, and now, we're proudly based here. You're part of the AU Dollars team, I'm part of the Marshall Street team, and, it's a meeting of the minds, but it's been a journey to get here for real, hey?
It has. Now, before I guess I touch on, our journeys and linking up and, doing what we've done together, in the time that you spent in the industry, walk us through the changes from starting and, getting in, because I think I played my first shows in 2011 with DYE, so that was when we first started. I think it was like November 20th, I think, or 21st, 2011 was the first kind of show that we did. So from then on, and we were always kind of in parallel. We were always coming up at the same time. Yep. From you guys first getting RMF together and first kind of looking at artists and stepping your toe into the hip-hop scene that was the Melbourne hip-hop scene back then. What are some of the changes and what are the biggest differences you see between, 2011 and now 2022?
Yeah, bro, it's totally different. Shout out those of us who've been doing it for that long. I don't feel old in this shit yet. I feel experienced and knowledgeable and having been around for a bit, but I still feel like I'm a young cat trying to break walls and break down. So it's crazy to think it's been nearly a decade. The changes, the accessibility is the biggest thing now. And there's actually an international market for locally based hip hop that isn't boxed into any one look or sound. I think that's the biggest thing, is that thanks to the internet, thanks to progress, thanks to some hard work for some OGs and some young cats that, again, don't look and sound like Australian hip-hop used to, the scene's in a real fortunate position. And the best thing about that for me is that it means the sky's the limit. Leroy is number 5 most streamed artist in the world or some shit like that. That's cool. We haven't even... He's the tip of the iceberg, you know what I mean? And it's finally happened. We've been saying... You remember back in the day, we didn't... Not that there wasn't a scene, and shout out the OGs and that who were doing it back then, but there wasn't the depth and the wider accessibility that there is now and recognition, and it's really dope. And I'm excited for cats who are 10 years younger than us, or 15 years younger than us, what they're going to walk into in the next decade, man. And
even that, I remember when I got into the scene, is there were the OGs that came before it to even open the door to what we look back as now is a fucking tiny scene.
Yeah, exactly.
The dudes like Enfa, Craig Cartel.
Yep, shout out.
Those dudes were, even when I got in, they were the big guys in the scene. And then you look, even we had Enfa on the podcast probably over a year ago or so, but it was crazy to hear me. It was 100% back then, you wouldn't even imagine that it could get to this point just because it was just a different mind state around. It wasn't anywhere near as cool to be dude, I make hip hop or I'm a rapper. That. It didn't have the air that it does around it now.
Yeah. Now it's become, and it was always going to, because hip hop, became the leading influencer culturally around the world.
Well,
And
even
it was
just
only
the
a matter-
fashion that comes from hip hop. Like people dress hip hop, then they start,
It is. Hip hop leads culture. And it was only a matter of time before Australia caught up to that. And now we are. And it still doesn't lead culture here yet, but it is now a major player.
Yep.
And it will dominate culture here over the next decade. And so we are absolutely in the golden age of being in hip hop in Australia. And it's hella exciting. Like we at the start of the wave as well. I think people think now it's fully blown up. It's nowhere near what it's been.
Yeah. This is
Still bubbling.
Yeah.
And
100%.
so we're still, like, I feel we're now where the UK was probably 10 years ago, probably 2012. So look at what the UK did, hip hop did for the next decade. UK hip hop runs the world now. Those Sonics, that'll be Australia in the next decade, and that's fucking exciting.
Yeah. Now, it is crazy to think that, isn't it? Even from, I guess, the technology side of things, back in the day, like, to get your music out.
The barriers to entry, yeah.
Like, there was no self-distribution. There was no Ditto. If you didn't get a deal and they put you on iTunes, there was no way. You couldn't just send iTunes your tracks and be like, hey, can you have this up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. And you were one of the first to do it. You ain't got to deal with Obese, you know what I mean? Because that was how you had to do it at the time.
That was our sticker campaign, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
To help that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys did that. This is a conversation I was having with someone recently. I can't remember. It was like, how hard did we have to fucking hustle, bro? Like on the street, in terms of just networking and connecting and meeting people and going to gigs and physically being in spaces. Like that was the biggest part of the hustle. Now with the internet, it's so different. You know what I mean? Like I feel like, and again, no slide on youngins coming up now, but like y'all don't have the work ethic that we had to have. And I don't want to sound like an old head here, but like I feel sometimes it's lazy that artists now will just send a DM and if it doesn't get a reply, like that's it. That's the extent of my hustle. Fuck, man. Like what did we have to do?
I get that, but it's also, I think a lot of them they're putting in, say, the hours, it's just in a different way. And it's even like the people before us, like fucking Jack the Bear, they had to send a fucking letter to a studio in New York, hope that it got there, then 2 weeks later, if they actioned on it straight away, they would get a reply. So it's a month turnaround.
Yeah.
And that was just how you had to put in the work to get into the scene. Yeah. When we came up, like, excuse me, I remember if I could see, like, the amount of hours I'd spent doing distro, because I think at the time I just left being a Sparky. So it was like when I had an afternoon off, it was like, all right, cool, distro mission. So I'd just get like a fucking 1,000 stickers or like fucking 50 or 100 posters and I'd go wheat paste them all around fucking Melbourne. I'd drive all around Melbourne.
The best campaign.
And then just see where there was an empty wall. And be like, cool,
this is the reason we didn't link a decade ago properly is because I was fucking envious of this cat's sticker game because it was better than ours. Like we smashed the north, we smashed where we lived, but then we'd travel anywhere outside our area. And you were similar to, you're a bit further east than us, but you were similar. So our stickers crossed over a fair bit. But then whenever you went further, it was just DYA everywhere. I was like, these motherfuckers.
Yeah, there was like a good probably 3 or 4 years when they were just at their peak. And we were getting them sent in. So we'd mail them out with all our merch and everything like that. And we were getting them sent in from like the fucking Berlin Wall from Fiji, a dude who volunteered on the Steve Irwin down in like Antarctica.
We got a Real Music sticker on Buckingham Palace.
That's nice.
My homie, shout out Pumba, he put one up on Buckingham Palace. I got to find a photo and I'll repost it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. But I think it's like, I mean, and that just took hours. I think, the up-and-comers now, the hours are spent in a different sense. We didn't have fucking TikTok. We didn't have Instagram. So it's like...
Yeah, it's a lot more about the content creation now,
And the dudes who break through are putting in fucking work
on
in
a
their
content
room.
creation front. Yeah.
Correct.
Look at Mason Dane or something like that, you know what I mean?
It's just a different area that you need to apply pressure these days, I feel.
Yeah. I totally agree. However, I think it's got to be a combination of the two. Obviously, the last couple of years doesn't count because like no one's been out of the house.
Yeah.
But when gigs come back and events come back, physically being present and linking with people is so
100%.
important. And at the moment, it's being done through studios. Like I'm seeing different cats come through here just to link and connect, have a session, meet at other studios, whatever. That physical interaction is still second to none.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yep. True, 100%. I'll back that. Now, even let's talk about, I guess, how things change. Like when we first, or even for you, when you first got, I guess, started out, like wanting to play gigs and even that first process of learning how to put on a show and fucking from all those firsts you do coming into it till now, like, I guess, how have your values changed if they have? What's your thoughts on, I guess, the success that people chase? Because I know a lot of artists listening to this are in that 3 to 4 year period and, a lot of them, they've got the idea of success they're chasing.
Yeah.
How has that changed for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing and the biggest realization probably is that success isn't linear and your path isn't linear. I expected that you start here, you draw a dot there and you just go like this. It's like it looks a lot more like this, ups and downs and like learning on the go, making mistakes, working with people, not working with people, like all that that is all part of the journey in the process. And it's real easy to feel when you're in those traps that this is it, I'm done, I'm over. But when you zoom out and look at the sort of macro, if you're always progressing in whatever capacity that looks like, that's what this journey is. Like it is about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
The more you're in this game, the more you realize that.
Yeah.
Whereas early on, you think there's a point where you make it, and you think this is a race, and there's a finish line, and that once you get that finish line, then all of a sudden I've made it. I don't have to do any more. I've just got this audience, and I've got money and whatever. That doesn't exist. Even Drake is still hustling. And I think that's the biggest lesson is that it's a race against yourself and an improvement on yourself. It's almost like a fucking computer game. You're just always trying to get to the next level, but there's no finish of the game.
Yep. Yeah, the finish line is death,
That's
unfortunately.
it. That's exactly what it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, I remember even starting out, you hear people say that, like, hey, man, it's the journey. It's the process that you should, that you need to enjoy.
It might just be naivety and shit like that.
I think it just comes from lack of experience. Honestly,
Yeah,
like
facts.
going through the failures, like you have to go through the failures to, one, appreciate the wins. And I think if you look at people that have wins straight out of the gate, like they don't know what the other side is, and I think it's hard to fully appreciate and be grateful for something once you don't know what the other side is, when the failure of that is. So I think just going through those lessons, and then honestly, it's just time. Like unless you put a mass amount of time into something, and then you've had things go your way, not go away. You got to experience that spectrum of emotions in this field. And then you realize, hey, man, that I could have the best of times. I could land the biggest sync deal and I get that phone call that gives a fat check. And then it's like the next day, you still go back to doing what you're doing. So it's like, the highs are never permanent and neither are the lows. Yeah. So I guess, for me, it was just going on that journey to the point where, we are now. And you go, oh, man, they were right. It is the journey, not the end destination.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from like purpose and like what you tie your value to. Like often in this game we tie our value and also particularly hip hop is a very materialistic driven, it's driven under capitalism, and so there are successes there that people will measure and want to achieve and think that's where the value is, but it does take a minute to understand that your value is separate to what you achieve. Yep. And you exist as a human being regardless of any of the other bullshit. Because so many people think, if I just land that playlist or I just play that show or I just get that collab, I'll be happy. Yeah. And then it's just like afterwards, it's like coming down off a high. You know what I mean? It's like fucking getting on a bag of rack for a weekend or something and then you think you're on top of the world, but then as soon as it's done, like you're depleted again. Yep. And like this game is like that as well. It's like, oh, what's next? Whereas if you're just like enjoying it as a journey and enjoying every experience and you're continually progressing and growing and doing what you love, that's what matters in the end at any level.
But I'll also throw in there, and I was in this, and I'll also say, I'd say a lot of early artists fall into this trap, and I was the exact same, is that we want those measures of success for the wrong reasons. We usually want them, to fucking tell someone that hey, fuck you, man, I did this. Or you hope that, hey, man, you'll see my name in this to a post and they'll be like, oh, fuck, he was right. He went you chase it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, ain't about that at all.
And it's only when, all that, and it's through time that gets dissolved away. And then you're like, I guess that's when artists ask themselves, like, hey, is this actually what I want to do? Like, does this make me happy, or was I chasing it for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, that's it. And that's what it comes down to. It's just like figure out your purpose, your why. Why are you doing this? And just enjoy the experience and try and do whatever the fuck you want. Like, life is a choose your own adventure novel. You can just pick whatever you want to do. And so do it. And it's probably taken me a long time to realize that as well. Like I've always been, we call it like a pirate journey when you're not living a normal 9-to-5 life. I've been on this journey for a long time, but it's probably only in the last few years that I've managed to step back and realize, this is what you're doing with your life. Like it's easy to even get caught in the micro of you get up, I'm working, I'm doing this, blah, blah, but you miss stepping back and going, I've achieved some dope shit. I'm living the life I want. Like, that's cool. That gives me power because, you sometimes can feel trapped in freedom and that's a bit of a paradox. But
Yeah. I think also imposter syndrome plays a big part in that.
yeah, for real.
Because it's like and unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to avoid this, is that imposter syndrome in a new industry. But it's like once you get through that and you feel, your worth and what you bring to the table, I think it's easier to enjoy that process. I don't think while that lingering cloud of fuck, do I actually belong in this room? I don't think while that's on you, you'll ever really enjoy the now, because you're always looking for the next, because you're trying to get through this early period of, do I actually belong here?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so funny, like, to have this paradox of, like, imposter syndrome, which a lot of people feel, but at the same time, a chip on my shoulder, like, y'all don't give me the credit I deserve. You don't give me my daps. Like, no one's giving me a look. And you've got that, and then you've got imposter syndrome at the same time. It's this weird paradox. And that's being human.
One of
that's
the flaws of the human nature.
And that's just maturity and time, and it comes through that. And, I'm grateful for, like, the ability to have that perspective and what that's meant for me as a human being. Like, achievements and accolades and all that stuff is cool, but there's nothing like experience and knowledge. Like, that's what this shit's about in the end. And like, this shit could end tomorrow, and I'm super grateful for fucking the last decade. But I fully believe, like, our best years are ahead of us. Like, I know that. I know my best years are ahead of me. Like, it hasn't been easy. No way. Like, the hustle's been hard, and it's been a lot of work for not a lot of return, and it's still not. Like, we still ain't living good off this yet.
I've got a question for you. Given what you know now about, going into even business for yourself and getting into this industry back then, given the amount of work you now know it will take, would you have gotten into this in 2010?
Yeah, I think I would have done it slightly differently. I would have done it differently and learnt from some things. But, yeah, I'd still do the same shit in my life. Yeah, man, I've fucking experienced some shit I couldn't dream of. If I got to sit with 10-year-old me and like, bro, this is some of the shit you've lived, that's cool as fuck. You know what I mean? And it hasn't been, as I said, hasn't been a linear journey, and it hasn't all been fucking roses and all that bullshit and great. It's been a lot of hard times, a lot of tough times, and times that fucking nearly have broken me and have broken people around me. But yeah, man, like, I'm fucking super grateful for what the hell I spent.
The good times outweigh it.
Yeah. It's not even the good times, it's just the experiences that, drawing connections that maybe, in another reality didn't happen. In another reality, I'm working some job and whatever, and I'm not satisfied, and I'm just living a mediocre life. But here I'm just chasing shit, and the people I've met and the experiences I've had, and I feel like this is not even the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Nice. Now, walk us through AU Dollars. As you touched on briefly, it was a space to give, press and attention to artists that weren't otherwise getting in this country.
Yeah.
Walk us a little bit through, founding it, even you and John's early days, because Junior did a lot of touring. He was on tour with, I think they set the record for Australia with Seth Sentry.
Yeah.
He did the Wu-Tang tour, he did the Ice Cube tour.
Cypress Hill.
Yeah. And AU Dollars was happening then?
Yeah. So Junior and Ooze linked in like 2013. So Ooze was like playing some shows and supporting us and that. And then he didn't have a DJ, and Junior had just not long been in DJing, maybe 6 months or something. And was like, he DJ'd for Ooze it was just at a sound check, and then Ooze was like, I don't have a DJ, can you play the gig for me? He was like, yeah, whatever. And we all just kicked it, playing regional shows and camping together in fucking tents and freestyling together, and just became homies. And then, Ooze blew up online, like had shit go viral in like 2014, got, signed with a good management team who are now the Untitled Group. So that's a decade later how that's evolved. And then got put on a bunch of shows. That star rose really quick. And then, it turned into... Junior had some downtime, and between a tour or whatever. We had just discovered all this dope music and was like, had this concept, and AU Dollars, just about money, about, this is getting money back into the right hands, that sort of thing, I think was the loose concept at the start. And even we couldn't have imagined how it grew to the point it did now. Like, we always had a passion for like music discussion. A lot of the homies we met on like back when hip hop message boards were a thing, and we would just discuss hip hop and rap and like text battles and shit like that. That was big, like in the early days of the internet, and so we always had a passion for a blog or like a community to discuss music, and that sort of just fused with us creating music and, you know, where the Australian scene was at the time, and there was a gap in the market to become what it did. So $80 is just how it sort of came about, and all the ideas I guess we'd always had, we just suddenly piled into $80 and grew it from where it was. Junior founded it 100%. Like he was the one DJing it. I was behind the camera live streaming the sets on a Facebook live stream had been around a week. So it was everything me and Junior done has always been a partnership. He's always been very much around ideas, and I help with execution and strategy and shit like that. He carried a lot of the burden early, you know, and he was the face of $80. Originally when it started, it was called $80 with Junior.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and then
I remember that.
yeah, and it was like the reason that was is for it to get credibility. Junior had credibility as an artist and name. In 2015, you know, he hit his first EP hit top 10 in the charts that we released independently on RMF, and so he had a little bit of name and clout as DJ as well. So it was very much about leveraging his personality and his relationships for this brand. But it was always his vision to do that at the start and then step away and let $80 be its own entity. It's just sort of how it's evolved that I've stepped into a content role on it. But it's a team, as you know, you're part of it. And the vision is for it to always be its own brand and its own independent thing. And yeah, we play roles in it, whatever that looks like. And it's really cool, the community that it's grown. I think that's the most exciting bit for me is we've helped provide opportunities to artists and have seen success happen that wouldn't have happened had we not built this platform. And that's not that we're fully 100% responsible for the success of everything that's going on now. No, everyone's built their part, but we played a key role. And yeah, if $80 ended tomorrow, it's still fucking in Australian hip hop legacy forever. Like, and that's the shit that means shit to me. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's even for me just seeing the like the response and the love that artists have for $80, you know, is a big indicator because obviously you can, I mean, not obviously, but you can build a big blog and a big brand that fans enjoy, but artists kind of laugh at, or it's kind of, you know, it's a bit of a joke to be on there. Not a joke, but it doesn't carry a lot of weight.
Yeah.
I think how artists view and the public persona that artists have of $80 is what puts it in a different league than everything else.
Yeah, that's what I feel as well. Like we're not the biggest, and we don't have the biggest mainstream audience. Probably the next evolution of us is starting to spread our wings a bit wider. It's like the third time I've knocked that.
You can just bring it up to you if you want.
But starting to spread it a bit wider. But yeah, I think it was because it's built by artists for artists. That's how it started. As we said, like it was built because there was a gap in the market. There was the opportunities in hip hop in Australia weren't what they are today, so there wasn't as much music getting played on the limited amount of channels or the limited amount of outlets.
Yep. Let's be honest, the hip hop back then was very much similar to each other.
Yeah. Like it was blue-eyed, blonde-haired, white male.
Barbecue hip hop.
And I know that's a skip hop, that's a term, and y'all weren't all rapping about barbecues and all that shit. But that was the persona, you know what I mean?
That was what was getting the attention from the small amount of labels that were existing.
And if you spoke to anyone who wasn't in the hip hop scene and mentioned hip hop in Australia, their stereotype went straight to that.
Correct.
And that's the bridge that we've crossed now, and that's the floodgates that have opened. Is now you say hip hop from Australia and it can look and sound like anything.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing I feel. I forgot my point. Where were we at?
Oh, who knows? You made a better point.
Yeah. So that's why, we sort of created it, and it was artists for artists because we saw artists like us who didn't look and sound like what was getting put on or the niche stereotype was. And so we tried to build a platform for ourselves to showcase that.
Yep.
And artists thought it was dope, respected Junior as a personality and as a DJ and as an artist himself. And so it just happened really quick, yeah. And
perfect. I love it, man. Now let's wrap things up because I think this has been a good chat so far.
Yeah.
But given what you know now and everything that you've gone through and experiences, what advice would you give to an up and coming artist or someone who's fresh 1, 2, 3 years in the scene and starting to get about it and starting to take their stuff seriously?
Yeah.
Starting to invest in themselves and they see they see kind of, the journey they're on.
Yeah.
What advice would you give this person?
Yeah, there's no one bit of advice that will change the game either. So that's the first bit of
No,
advice
yeah,
I'll say. It's that there's a combination of things. One is figure out your why you're doing this and what do you want it to look like. And then chart a path to get there. So like that might be like, what do I want to achieve by the end of this year? Like what are the circles I want to move in? What are the and then just literally drop in places and treat it like a job. Treat it like the gym. If you've got a workout regime and you're trying to get to a certain weight or a certain look or a certain image, you then do the training that's required to get there. I think taking that sort of approach is one thing. I think two, take risks. Go in, fuck up, have a go at things, learn on the journey. If there's regrets I've got, it's from not doing stuff earlier and not investing more money and not taking more risks. You know what I mean? Like that's a big thing. Three, start with your community, put your team on. Your manager or your booking agent is probably one of your homies in your circle. There's no one person in this game that will change your life. It's not like, if I sign that deal or if I get that manager or whatever, then it's game over. Nah, build together as a team. I just finished watching the Wu-Tang documentary and that was, again, massively inspirational for me because that's how we build our model as well. It's like exactly what Wu-Tang were doing in the early 90s. Like put on your team, put on for your community. And then once you got that respect, then take it elsewhere. And just enjoy the journey. That's it. Like but just take risks, network, message people, get out to gigs and connect. Because if you're a good person and you make good shit, people are going to want to connect with you. There's no other things about it. It comes about putting in hard work to your craft and being good at your craft so that you're respected by other artists. And that only comes with time, effort, and input. You can't front on that. And then the second is just be a good person. Like there's been some of the most talented people I've ever come across are the biggest fucking dicks, and I can't even be in the same room as them because they're just not good humans. But I also know guys who aren't maybe that naturally talented, but are good people, and I see their work rate and their effort and their genuineness. They're exactly the people I want to work with because we can build together.
Yep. Love it, man. Nice. Well, thank you very much. It was awesome having you on today.
Love,
as
bro.
always, if you've found this information useful, if you've liked what we spoke about, make sure to subscribe to it wherever you listen to it, and share it with a friend. Get it out there. That's how we can, get this advice and this information out to as many people as possible.
$80, Marshall Street, Real Music, Matthew Gray. Go follow it all, and let's talk. If you like this shit, shoot us a DM.
Yep.
Always down for conversations.
All right. Thank you very much. It's been another episode of the Marshall Street Podcast.
Bless.
Peace.